The types of transactions. In accounting, there are cash transactions and credit transactions. But let's start out with cash transactions. A cash transaction involves the immediate payment or receipt of cash or check to complete the transaction. The important thing to note here is that whether you receive cash or check, it will fall under cash transactions. The second important thing to note is that whenever there is a cash transaction, that transaction is complete. There's nothing left of that. So let's take an example. Mr. X sold us goods worth $80 on cash. Now, in a cash transaction, the name of the party to whom the goods are sold or from whom the goods are purchased is not recorded. So in this example, the name Mr. X is not going to be recorded since this transaction is a cash transaction. The only thing that we want to record is that it's cash and the amount of $80. A credit transaction does not involve the immediate payment or receipt. Therefore, this kind of transaction is incomplete. For example, goods worth $80 are purchased from Mr. A on credit. Now, in a credit transaction, the name of the party, which in this case is Mr. A, is recorded. And this is recorded to determine how much is owed to them or how much is owed from them. If we do not record this name, then we will not know who we're supposed to pay. Therefore, a credit transaction is always going to record the party's name. And now let's go over the rules for cash and credit transactions. The first and the most important rule is that all transactions where the word paid or received or cash are mentioned, this is going to be treated as a cash transaction. So every time you see a transaction, the first thing that I want you to do is just go over the wordings and see if any one of these words is mentioned. If it is, then you don't need to think about anything else. Just treat it as a cash transaction. The second rule is that all transactions where a personal name is mentioned, or the name of a company, the name of a firm, or if you see the wordings on account of, on credit, right? So it says credit. No, those kind of transactions are going to be called credit transactions. How about if we have the words cash and we also have a personal name? So this is going to be a little confusing, right? So we have, whenever it says cash, we treat it as cash transaction. But if that same transaction has a personal name, then what do? Well, we come on to the rule number 3. So all transactions where both cash and a personal name are mentioned, we're not going to treat this as a credit transaction. This just goes out. The word cash is more important. So if both of them are mentioned, we're going to jump back over to number 1 over here. We're going to say it's a cash transaction. And then finally, all transactions that are generic in nature are going to be treated as credit transactions. Now, examples of this are like wages due. It doesn't say cash, it doesn't say credit. Since it is very generic, it doesn't give us a lot of information. We're going to treat it as a credit transaction. Similarly, electric due. It's a very generic and vague sentence. And so we're going to treat this as a cash transaction. You don't need to worry much about this because we're going to do an exercise into this, and I'm going to go step by step trying to explain each one of those transactions so that you get a very firm understanding on how to treat each kind of transaction. So let's move ahead now and we'll do some practice.